Hey everybody, welcome back to Monster Mind Customs channel. Today we're going to be, as usual, working on Frankenstein. It took a little while to get all the things I needed for it. So story was that I went to the show, and that'll be the next video that comes out, but I went to the show, I took Frankenstein with me, it did fine. Everything worked. I came back, I think I spent 2 days, and then I drove it again. I took it about 30 minutes away to pick up some suspension parts for Banshee. And on my way out there, it turned out to be a pretty warm day. It turned out to be right in the 90s, just about. And my front brake locked up again. I have no idea why it does it, why it is so inconsistent that it does it. So I'm a little fed up with it. And I know it's been on the list, so now, today, it's gonna get fixed. Hopefully all today. We'll see how long it takes. So the goal set here today is that I have a bunch of parts that any one of them could be part of the problem, but they're all getting replaced anyway. I have a... well, here, let me grab it. So, in addition to the brake pads, which will 100% need to be done just because it locked up and seized, and that's happened a couple times on that wheel, so I know those brake pads cannot be that good. So I'm going to take them out, replace the brake pads on both sides, you know, typical stuff, and probably end up flushing almost all the fluid out of the system. I'm going to have to re-bleed everything. So here's some of the stuff that I've got. I have a brake proportioning valve in the vehicle, but it is a brake proportioning valve from a Jeep Cherokee. So there's a Jeep Cherokee that had disc brakes. And I wanted to use that proportioning valve because the ones that originally came on the Comanche and the Cherokee had drum brakes originally, so they changed how they proportioned the brake fluid. And with the proportioning valve from the Grand Cherokee, it had the disc brake. Oops, sorry about that. It had the disc brake amenity, so it basically split the brake fluid going out to the rear calipers much better than a standard drum brake would. However, that was kind of touch and go. You had to do some custom stuff to the line out to the rear and the line out to the front. It was just all around a little odd, so I'm switching. I'm going with a Willwood proportioning valve. Everything on here is 3/8 24, so I'm going to have to make some modifications to some of the lines. I know that the rear brake line is going to need to be changed because that's 7/16 rather than the 3/8 24. So I'll have to change that one out. But between that and the lines that go into the top here, should be the only thing I can change. But the really cool thing about this is that this allows me to change how I proportion my rear braking load just by turning this. So I can adjust it and make sure that I'm getting the braking that I want out of the rear, rather than relying on the proportioning valve itself to kind of doctor that up. So this is an all-in-one kind of brake proportioning valve. It's brand new, so I know there's not going to be any issues with stuff being inside of it, and I have the ability to customize that. So that's one step of the solution here. Another thing was, in an older video, somebody suggested that I replace the brake lines that I had. And that's a really good suggestion, actually, because the brake lines that I have, those... here, let's walk out here and take a look at them. The brake lines I have are these stainless steel ones, right there, that I've had for, well, since I got the vehicle. So, these, while they are nice and they don't generally fail like that, it's entirely possible that there's something jammed up in here, or that the inner liner of it has collapsed, or it causes issues when it gets too warm. So great suggestion on that one. I am going to do that. I bought these. These are rear brake cables for a JK. It's impossible to find anything unless it's for another vehicle. I'm going to put in little brackets right here. Hopefully I won't, well, I might have to drill through this. This is my plating on the frame, so this is pretty thick stuff. But these are slightly smaller than, shorter than these old stainless lines, but you can see how long this is. Like, it's so long that it actually wrapped back here to come around and down. And this one, I think the old was about 38 inches, 40 inches maybe. These are about 32. So you can see that it cuts in. It's nice and tight on the edge there. It's got plenty of room for it to come around, and it's got this little elbow bend on the end that I can position it better with. Because I also want to keep my brake lines off my tires when I go to turn. So these should be nice. Thank you for the suggestion on that one, because, you know, all the things I've replaced in the brake system, and that was just something I never even questioned, was, hey, I've already got upgraded brake lines. There's no way these would be bad, but they can fail. And I don't know who installed them or what they did with them. It's entirely possible that they're just not up to the standards they used to be. So I've got all this stuff. I've got some tube nuts right here, 3/8 24, so I'll have to do one flare, which means I'm going to be breaking out my flaring tool. But I have a NICOP lines on the back, and then I got these from the store. So these are, and they're poly armor, which is nice, which means they're a bit more flexible. But these are my outputs from my master cylinder. For my master, I needed a 10-1 bubble flare, so that's this end right here. And then I needed a 12-1 bubble flare, and that's this one right here. So I've got both of these now. I wanted to do pre-made because I don't have a kit to do my bubble flares. I don't have anything to do that with. But these should be fine as just a step over from my brake master cylinder to the proportioning valve. And then maybe later I'll create a bracket for the proportioning valve to hold all that stuff in there. So I'm going to put these on there. I'm going to bleed all the brakes out again. And that's going to give me a bunch of new components going to the front end. The other option, or the other issue that it could be, is just that maybe the brake master cylinder is failing. It is a brake master cylinder and booster from a later model Grand Cherokee, so late 90s, early 2000s Grand Cherokee. So dual diaphragm booster and the plastic reservoir for a brake master. And when I first installed that, I actually took the whole thing apart and cleaned it out, because it sat for a number of years, but it didn't really have a ton of corrosion to it. I was able to clean it pretty much all the way out, but who knows, something could have failed in that. But my first thing I'm going to try is replacing all of these parts and seeing if that helps me. And the other big thing with this, well, a big thing, it's not really a big thing, I did try to adjust, well, I didn't just try, I did adjust my emergency brake, and there's just no emergency brake on this. Either the cylinders aren't engaging it, or because I've gone under it, I've seen what I have for spring length, I've pulled my emergency brake handle in the cab, and it compresses that spring almost all the way on that caliper. So the calipers just are not doing their functionality as the emergency brake. So I've got two options now. I can buy a new set of emergency brake calipers and put them in there and hope that they work. These aren't the calipers that it originally came with. I purchased these later on because I wanted an emergency brake amenity, and I never got one because they're just a pain. So I could buy basically the same caliper with an emergency brake amenity on it. I could go full hydraulic and basically have a line that runs into the cab with an emergency brake, so when I pull up on that, it compresses the liquid towards the rear and it cuts off flow and makes it so that it just sticks those calipers closed, which is also an option. Option 3 is putting in a going dual calipers in the rear and having one mini caliper be an emergency brake. I don't want to do that one because that one requires fabrication on the rear end of this thing. And I don't want to weld more brackets for the calipers on there. So I think my option, because most of the hydraulic emergency brakes are, I can't find one that's just a normal, you know, faces horizontally and you lift it up. Most of them are those drift brakes where they're straight up and you gotta just pull on them a little bit so you can lock up your rear wheels. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for an amenity that makes it so that I can just stop this thing from rolling down hills. That's really all I want. So I might just go with the brake calipers in the rear, just see if I can get that. I don't remember when I first got these. It took me a while to get into actually building my emergency brake setup. So when I first got those calipers, they didn't have the emergency brake operating on them, and it was years before I attached an emergency brake to it. And they had some okay corrosion to them, and they were a pain to work with. So maybe something in there just didn't get exercised or didn't get flexed, or perhaps it just broke over the years. I don't know. But in any case, I'm going to go ahead and I guess I'll start with doing the brake work under the hood, and then I'll move to replacing the brake pads, and then I'll bleed everything. Poly armor is nice because I'm able to bend it a little bit easier. So that'll go in, that'll go in. This guy's big, this guy's the not as. I'm trying to do this and get them bent before I take these out, because these ones are going to be, I don't want to have to try to bleed this thing again and throw on my bench bleed and stuff. I know that because I've got this fluid in here, it shouldn't leak out very quickly, and I shouldn't have it run out too much, but I want to minimize the amount of time I've got with these two runs out. So new plan, I guess, is to mount it underneath of it like this, and then I can come back and make a bracket later that lines up with this and hooks onto these bolts after I clean them significantly. I think I'll do that. Oh, sorry about that. In a second, I'll show you how I'm bending these. If it was like stainless steel, we would have a bit of a challenge. But because this is poly armor, it's much, much easier to bend. Before I go and do this last bend, I'll show you what I'm doing here. Let me get this situated. Workbench is a mess as usual. So it's just a solid rod. Really, this is soft enough that it doesn't kink, so that's what you're looking for. But you still got to be careful, because if you try to turn it too much, you will end up kinking this. But basically I'm just taking this, putting it up against here, and then just creating a radial bend using this pipe as a guide. I'm going to have to detach these and then turn them. But I think I'm going to detach these first. And that way I've still got fluid in the tops of these lines. I'll detach these first. I'll bend them how I need them, get all these positioned in the way they need. I'll have to reflare this one right here. And then I'll take these off and I'll put it in 100%. So let me grab my wrenches. They just never want to come loose. Okay. That one actually popped free pretty easy. I guess once I get these off, I'll evaluate if I need to, since I'm already going to be reflaring this forward one, I can see how that looks on the rest of them. I'm just gonna wrap you up. That way I've got room to work. Alright, so rear I can bend a bit further back because it's going to be pretty much right here, so I got an extra inch of makeup space. Fronts, this one's already not where it's supposed to be because it keeps on turning. So that one will be up here. Not great condition on the tube nut. This one would be, this is what I mean by the NICOP versus the steel. NICOP doesn't require, well, it requires some positioning, but it bends so easy that it just doesn't really kink up or anything like that. It just bends. And the only downside to NICOP really is if you don't have a tube bender and you don't do it perfectly, they bend so easy that you end up with weird lumps everywhere, so you gotta be careful with it. You don't want to have it look terrible, but as far as usability, they are 100% better than any others. It took forever to find my brake flaring kit, so took me a minute to get back to this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little mini file kit. Just make sure I file it down flat. Make sure I file all the edges, because you want to deburr all this stuff before you go to try to flare it. These can affect your flare. So let's go ahead and get this brake flared. Put it in the 3/16 side. I'm gonna tweak you a little bit that way because you're a little off. Another nice thing is that this whole little kit thing here, when you clamp it in between, if you have extras of these, some places sell them, or you can use this one, just use the back side. You clamp it on like that, and then you can cut it with a hacksaw, and it'll give you a nice piece to hold it and something for it to ride off of, so you're not shaking it everywhere trying to get a straight cut. It gives you a nice straight cut right off the bat. No problems. Now, a lot of important things with brake flaring. You of course want to deburr your edges of the line. You want to cut it as straight as possible. And you want it to be real tight in here. But what will kill a flare more than anything is if it's uneven. So you really want to make sure that when you put it in here, I'll pop the camera over. When you put it in here into this, you really want this nut right here to be sitting as flat as possible, back and forth and side to side. Now side to side is easier because this is clamped onto each of these edges, but back and forth, if it's just a little bit off this way, then it's going to favor that direction and you're going to get this weird bend on this side, and your flare is not going to come out. It's going to come out oblong, and it's not going to work. It's not going to hold. Well, it might hold, but you'd be lucky if it did. Alright, welcome back. It's a nice, beautiful new day. Been having some great weather recently, but it's going to cool off next week, so I'm trying to get this done before then, and I'd like to drive this to work in the morning. Just, you know, kind of enjoy it while we got the nice weather out here. So, as we saw last time, brake lines in. Let's pop the hood real quick. I'm gonna need to do that anyway. Yeah, there we go. Hard to do with holding something. We got the valve in, which I can see has leaked somewhat because there's some paint damage here. I'm still pretty good on fluid, so it's right there, right at the rear. So the rear one isn't quite sealed down where I need it to be. The other two look good. Nothing coming out of them. I'm not sure why the rear has so much debris, but we'll give it a little torque down and get it situated and make sure everything's good, and then got mosquitoes. And then it's brake pads today, bleed the brakes, and roll on with it. So let's get started. I can't really see where it's coming from. I assume it's coming from the valve itself. I see a little bit on that guy too. I'll give them all a little tension. Bring them back down. Hopefully that'll handle it. Alright, what's going on with you? Torque you down just a tiny bit. Oh yeah, there's lots of space to move this guy. No wonder it was leaking. Basically had... This one's pretty tight. That one. Alright, I guess we'll see once I get the booster going and I push on the brakes. But for now, I guess it's time to jack this thing up. here's what it looks like here, which is not great. You can see all the ridges on here. They're not deep or anything like that, so I mean, it's not ideal. You definitely don't want ridges on your rotor, but I mean, I guess technically I should replace this whole hub rotor, but considering these are like $180 a piece, I am not going to do that. And this doesn't see much road use. But you can see like the heat started to make this peel. You can see it started to cause the brake pad itself to just kind of break apart. It overheated very, very bad. And that's not good. I think while I'm up here, I'm also gonna grease up all the rod ends. Bring those back, or at least see if they've got some grease on them, but we'll see. Didn't even take 5 minutes. I don't know if it just got overheated. That would be some crazy overheating, but this literally didn't turn at all. It just popped right off. It snapped. So this is the retainer for my brake caliper. It's this metal plate thing right here. It slides in between and takes up the slack. And then this bolt is what, mosquito, go away. This bolt is what holds it there and makes sure that it doesn't move and I don't lose the tension on the brake rotor. And now I have a piece stuck in my knuckle that I'm gonna have to drill out and extract. I'm not sure what happened there. That was it was like butter. It didn't even begin to budge. It just fell right out. So I don't know. I guess I'll bring a drill bit out here and try to drill it out and see what I can make of it. I'm not sure. That's kind of a pain. That's not really good. So instead of drilling and extracting and all that pain in the junk crap, I'm just gonna do a little trick that I've done with tons and tons of bolts. So I'm just gonna set this over top of it and I'm gonna weld through the center of this nut to that bolt. So basically you could see well, you can't see it much, but it is in there. Basically this just sits right over top of it. Do a few tacks, fill that whole section with weld, and then I can just break it loose. So this is twofold because one, it gets a really nice tight seal to that, or it's not a seal, connection, I guess. It's a weld, so it's just bonding them together. It'll get a nice tight bond with that bolt, and it will heat it up, so it will break it free of anything that might be rust or otherwise in there. I just let it cool, then I come back over here with a wrench and I slowly move it, and that's it. And that's honestly probably a little bit faster and a little bit easier than pulling out a drill, drilling it down, putting the extractor in, doing the slow turn, trying to get the extractor. I've got a million of these nuts sitting around, and I've got my welder sitting right there. It's already fired up. Takes about a minute to tack this in, get it sealed up very nice. I'll probably file this out a little bit to get myself a better roll, and then I can just turn it out and get it out of there. So the problem I'm having right here is that the bolt I'm trying to use fits just inside that area, and it's really tiny. And if you've never used welding gloves, they're just big leather sewn inserts, and these edges and all that crap, yeah, it protects you from the heat, but it's almost impossible to do fine work. You can't feel the tips of your fingers, so you're basically using the edge of a glove to try to hold small things in, and it's just not easy. So I'm not getting the penetration of weld that I need. It wasn't bonding to the bottom surface like it needed to. But we'll see how many times it takes. Again, I've got millions of these nuts, and it's not too bad to do this every time. Okay, more good news. So all the compression cycles that this had to deal with and all the issues that it had to fight, yeah, it's not too ridged out, but problem is right here. So it compressed too hard at some point and cracked the piston. It just took a chunk off of it, so it's not crazy, but that's still not good. So at some point I'm gonna have to replace these as well. I've got some new rears coming in, but look at all this. Look at that pile right there, and over here, that's all just brake dust from it burning. Here, let's see if I can. Yeah, look at that. It's just like putty. It's all brake dust from it, from when these things would just get stuck and engage. So, gonna have to, well, I'm gonna replace them. I'm gonna leave this for now. That's not great having that little crack there. Just over compressed at some point. It looks like there's some, is that liquid or is that just, nope, just brake dust. It got cooked in here. So these got really hot at some point. I'm actually surprised that this seal is as good as it is. But for the time being, I'm just going to throw some brake pads on there and call it a day. I'll give some grease to the fitting area so that it can move back and forth the way it's intended. And that's it. That's all there is to these ones. These don't require retainers because they're built into the knuckle, which is very nice. Alright, let's get these guys on. Before it's possible. Jesus Christ. Dude, what is up with these? Why they got debris on them? That's not great. Nice little visual. By the way, that bolt came out easy. These are actually green. I painted these a long time ago when I did the rebuild of all this. You can't tell because there's so much brake dust on everything. I actually really need to get in here and clean all this stuff off properly. But this side was much easier. Hopefully it stays that way. We'll see. So it's getting dark out here. I'm stopping here for right now. I was kind of hoping I'd be done with this, but it took a little longer than expected. So here's what I got. I plumbed all that in. I didn't plumb it in. I hooked it all up, so it's pretty much ready to go and be tested. I got to do the wiring for this. I also did the brakes, the lines, and this is a pretty nice kit. It's a nice setup. It has this little L bend at the bottom here. Gets it up out of the way so it's not going to impact the tires. It's just long enough for it to work for me. So that's pretty good too. I'm going to put the brackets in tomorrow and I'll bleed everything tomorrow. I did see that doing all this actually did impact my brake fluid, so I might throw some in there just to make sure I don't run it too low, and I don't want to have to bench bleed this thing. It's yeah, not much left in there, but all right, I'll just pick it up again tomorrow. Okay, we're back at it again. So it took like 3 months to get these brakes correct. Jegs just never had the right ones. They kept sending me different ones. They kept sending me incorrectly sized ones. And it took a whole lot more research to find these brakes, these specific 7-inch pin-to-pin calipers. It's really difficult to find. But this is Jeff's Bronco Graveyard. They had these 7-inch calipers that, you know, he just couldn't find anywhere else. So thank God. Made my life easier, because I was planning on just cutting that thing off, that bracket off, and I don't know, doing the mounting kit or maybe welding on a 5 on 4.5. A lot more work into it, but didn't need to. Thank you, Jeff's Bronco Graveyard. So these are my 7-inch calipers that got the emergency brake attachment. Emergency brake seems to work pretty good on them right now. I just attached this one, but they recommend that I bleed these. I can do a normal bleed process, but when I go to put them on, I need to take them off of the bracket and gravity bleed them so that there's absolutely no air in the system. So that's what I'm going to do, but first I'm going to take the other side off and get that brake replaced as well. That way I can have them both on. I could just do the bleeding process for both of them at the same time and not have to worry too much about it. So that's where we are. And if it wasn't apparent by how I look, it got really hot in these past 3 months. It took forever to get these, so I missed out on a big portion of the spring, taking this thing out to shows. Now I just have to deal with the heat, and that's no fun. Boy, it's hot out here. This is kind of the issue we're having with this thing. Get it in frame here. When this thing compresses, you should have this move out some. Nothing. Absolutely no movement at all from it. So something happened with it at some point, or maybe they're just bad. They didn't work from the get-go. I didn't originally have an e-brake in this truck when I first got these calipers, so I didn't have anything to hook them up to, so they ran for quite a few years before I actually got some. And then by the time I hooked it up, they just didn't work, so here we are. Replacing them. Those ones are, I guess, no good. I mean, the pads might still be good, but they're covered in brake fluid now. gonna do now is I'm gonna adjust the parking brake to meet. And they got instructions for that. God damn, that's tight. That's tight. I don't want to put my bare hand on it. Also don't want to put oil on it. Boy, that's on there. Why is that so tight? That just seems really, really tight. The other one I could move pretty freely, but this one's in there. Well, I guess we'll find out. Lines like around tomorrow. Pads don't look like they're unusually worn. About the same as the other side, so I'm not sure why this would be so tight. Pushing against the outer pad. Sure why this outer pad is doing such a heavy contact patch. See, this was the outer. No, this is the inner. This was the outer. It's worn evenly. With the inner. I don't know. It's kind of weird that this has got to have so much tension on it in order to make this flat. Huh. Well, it worked before. I guess we're just going to wear it back in. It's not going to like turning for the first, I don't know, 40 miles, but it'll go. But for now, I got what I was originally doing before I found out that that was all off. Is it just that it's sticking out too far? Inch. I don't think so. 1/4 inch steel, that's going to be hard to bend. But adjusting the parking brake on these things, you have to compress it enough until the caliper goes in, and this thing only moves a certain distance. So I've got to push down on this until I get it to stop. Like that. So, way back when I first started doing this, let me unplug it real quick. Way back when I first started doing this, when I replaced this, seems like so long ago, it was months ago, but when I replaced this, I had a couple of things I had to address on it, and it was being a real pain. So, I don't remember which one it is, but one of these is leaking on this fitting right here, and I'm quite sure I can't get these much tighter. I don't want to strip them out, and these tube nuts are not known for their strength. And then I also had a leak on this side where I replaced that line. So I just took this one back apart, inspected the flange of it, or the, I guess it's not really a flange, it's the fitting, the double flare on it, and it looked clean, so I can't see any reason why it would leak. But sometimes you just got to mess with them again and get them kind of positioned better. So that's what I did. I took that one apart, looked at it, got it flat against the base connection of the tube, and then I tightened it back up. So that's what I'm going to do right here, and I'm going to hope that this actually does help or fix it. I don't know if it will. Again, I really hope it will. But I think it was the middle one here that was the pain, and I just gotta take it off. I gotta straighten it out. Try to get it as flat as possible against the edge that it's supposed to seal on. But I can see like a little bend in the tube right here that might make it so that it doesn't sit flat, and then when I go to tighten it, it's not quite there. But we'll see. I'm also going to inspect the flare on that one too, see if there's an issue with that. If there is, then I may just have to remake that line, which isn't too bad because that's just the line that goes right down here. And honestly, that might even be easier than than trying to do this. I will have to pull that protective spring cover thing off there, and I'll have to disconnect that again. But it'll work. It'll be good. And I hear thunder, so who knows? Maybe I'll get rained on too while I'm doing this. Honestly, the rain would be welcome. I would not be opposed to that because it is so hot out here right now. All right, back to it. Okay, so I got all the brakes bled. I did reseat these things just to see. It looked like they were fine. Not flange, I keep saying flange. The flare, that's what I'm talking about. The flare looked fine on both of them. So I just reseated them, and hopefully that's enough to take care of it. If not, well, I guess I'll find out once I start this thing. Right now I'm just getting the brake warning wires out of the way, so I'm going to solder these together. I got my soldering iron heating up. I could do it just the easy way and not bother with it, and the lazy way, just wrap electrical tape around it, but I always like to weatherproof my connections, so here we are. I'll do it the hard way, but it'll be better for it, and it'll be solid. Honestly, it's not that big a deal. Boy, I gotta redo this paint. But it's not that big a deal, but little things, I guess. I'll solder it and heat shrink it, and it'll be good. All right, we're back down on the ground. I'm still a little bit concerned about that brake, just because the way it was rubbing on that pad, like it didn't have any undue wear on the pad itself from the old, but maybe that's slightly bent out this way or something, and so it's rubbing extra hard. I don't know. That one was fine. That one, I guess, is just gonna have to wear in. We'll see, but these don't get a lot of braking action to start with, so I'm not worried about burning through a brake pad. I gotta pick all this up, but soon I'm gonna start it up now that everything's bled. Turn the power brakes on, like get the engine running on vacuum, and then push the brakes and see if it still leaks or not. Still leaks, then I'm gonna be done for the day. I'm probably not gonna do anymore. I'll come back out, and I guess I'll just end up remaking the lines or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I could cut it a little higher and redo the flare on one end. I don't know. Well, we'll find out. I'm hoping that I don't have to. Good Lord, it's hot out here. I picked the wrong day, but let's find out. Okay, so got a jump started since it had been so long. Still running a little rough. Probably going to need to run it for a little while just to get it used to it. The battery's been dead for so long, the computer's probably got to relearn everything. But I pushed the brake a couple of times and I don't see any leaking. No fluid. coming from either of the two places it was coming from before. I guess I gotta try it out though. Brake pedal does feel kind of soft. And then I guess eventually I should adjust these emergency brakes back again, because I had to loosen that whole assembly in order to get them off the first time. Now I got to tighten all that back up so it gets some tension, but I'm just happy it's not leaking, honestly. That was a big deal before, so not too bad. We have to do a test drive of it here soon. Of course now it's going to rain on me after I'm done. I wanted this, but so I just took it for a ride. I tested it out on the road out here, just kind of back and forth, seeing what it was doing. The brake, well, important thing, emergency brake does work now. I just tried that. It is pretty much unmovable when that emergency brake is on. Downside, the pedal's still kind of spongy, and when I have the emergency brake on with these back calipers, it should make it so that the whole brake system is hard as a rock. So I've got to bleed these probably a little bit better. But, I mean, big thing here, or I might even need to take them back off again. That would kind of suck, but I'll try bleeding them first and see if I can't get that pedal response. If not, then take them back apart. But, I mean, I'm just really happy that nothing's leaking on this thing. So I rode it out here. I took it down to the beach close by here and just kind of felt it out. Again, that pedal's kind of spongy, so it's not definitely not fully bled. And the other thing is I can feel the brake on this side grabbing. It is hot. So that brake pad is contacting. Like you saw earlier when I was putting it together, it's like pulling on it. So the outside brake pad is like solidly against that rotor. And I don't know why. I might have to try to bend that piece out or try to get it into a better shape. I mean, it looked straight, and honestly, I put brakes on this a while ago and it still worked back then. So I don't know. I guess I'll find out as I go along. I know that it works because, well, it works eventually because it wears in, but I don't know. Like right now I can feel it binding up when I'm driving. So, oh hey, I found a key. That's nice. But I can feel it binding up when I'm driving. And it's basically like what happened when that brake over there used to lock down on me. I just can't, I can't get up to speed very quickly. And I mean, you can feel the heat just touching everything over there. So not sure what to do about that, because that's a bigger issue. I don't know, honestly. All right, back again with just a quick little touch on the Frankenstein brakes. So all that trouble, all that effort, all the things that were going wrong with that, I did eventually find out what the issue was. But it took replacing pretty much everything. I basically rebuilt the brakes again on that truck. Now it functions perfectly. There's no overheating, nothing. Well, yeah, I'm just not going to say anything about the rear brake caliper bracket. That's might be offset. It's fine. It's working fine for right now. But so I wanted to show you what the deal was with it. Let me pull one of these out. So this is my old caliper from the front. So this is actually the one on the side that overheated. So you could see right there that it actually made this more brittle. It was starting to crack and flake away on whatever that metal is in there. But so the way these mount in there is they are on the bracket. This piece up top, that angle right there, connects into the caliper bracket itself. This on the bottom slides in there, but then there's a small
anchor plate, I think is what they call it, that goes in between the bracket and the caliper itself. And that anchor plate was the problem all along. So, with these brakes, I guess Ford changed the size of the anchor plate or something like that. There's two big issues with the brakes. One was that the anchor plate was too big, and that could be a non-issue considering the second problem with these. But in the end, you know, the concept is you want this caliper to be mostly free floating. You still want it to retain in there, but you also want it to be able to move back and forth. And the way that anchor plate was in there before did not allow this to move back and forth. So every time I was driving, one brake pad was basically just glued to the rotor. And that's what was causing this to overheat. This little bracket, this, you know, $5 piece of metal, was holding this so solidly against that rotor that it was overheating the brake caliper and the brake itself. That was it. That was the whole issue right there, was that this piece was just sized incorrectly for the application. The other issue was that I mean, while it might be just this was sized incorrectly, this caliper and every caliper, even the calipers I got new from Jeff's Bronco Graveyard, which, again, thanks to them because they had all the parts I needed for this. Every caliper, this lip right here, where this angle piece goes in, it has this little teeny tiny, like, 1/4-inch lip that catches up here and holds this in. Too big. This edge of the caliper is too big. It interferes with that lip, so when you're trying to push that in, it pushes the anchor out and puts unnecessary force on this. So I actually had to shave the edge of both of my new calipers right here in order for that bracket to slide in and work properly. So that's the same with these calipers too. I mean, you could kind of see it where it's worn down on the edge right here. That's from that little edge being pushed up against this so hard. And these are fairly new calipers to start with, so you can see there's almost no corrosion on them. The only damage is from the overheating. So that was the issue all along, was that that anchor was basically locking these calipers in place so they weren't able to move back and forth to adjust the brake pad distance. After a lot of time filing and working on that, I did get it to go on. It's not so loose that the calipers could shake all over the place, but it's loose enough that you can give it a tap and it'll budge back and forth, while still also retaining itself inside of the caliper bracket. And that was the issue all along. I'm not well, I mean, it kind of sucks that I spent so much money on extra things that weren't really the problem, but a lot of things that I dealt with out there were actually things that needed to be fixed anyway. So now the bonus is that I've got an emergency brake again, and that works. It's great. It's very nice to have an emergency brake. I've dealt with the caliper issue, obviously. I replaced the hoses going to those calipers with newer ones, which the braided lines that I had before were ones that came with the vehicle. So there's no guarantee that those were any good. I did keep them just in case I need some extra, but, you know, replace it and know that it's a good part rather than just thinking that it's a good part. I also replaced the proportioning valve on there with a Willwood unit, which was much better, and that gives me indication on when my brakes go bad because it has that little electronic brake pressure sensor on there. So basically my brakes are done. They're kind of fixed except for that one rear caliper that we're just going to pretend doesn't exist. And that kind of situates me pretty good on that one. Now the next big thing for Frankenstein is either I think I got to deal with the wheels. I need to do something about that. The wheels on that truck are too unpredictable. They're they're bouncy, they wobble, they're just unable to be balanced. It's a big drivability concern. It still drives, and sometimes it finds a nice happy medium where it can move and do what it's supposed to do. But it's too inconsistent, and I'm basically breaking other components on the front end by leaving it as it is. The tie rod ends are going to give out. The ball joints are going to give out. Everything's going to break on there if it keeps wobbling like that or bouncing like that, and that's a suspension issue as well. So I think I need to address the wheels, which is just basically biting the bullet and spending a lot of money like I did on the tube bender. And then the other thing is dealing with the suspension on Frankenstein. At some point, and I had this thought a while ago, and I still want to do it, I want to go coilovers for it. But real estate inside my engine bay is very limited. So I'll have to plan around where I'm going to weld in hoops to retain those coilovers. I got to measure out the coilovers and make sure I get the right ones and the right spring rates and all that thing. It would eliminate a lot of noise from the drivability of the vehicle and probably make it handle a lot better. But I think I need to deal with the wheels first, because that kind of bounciness is going to break down those coilovers as well quickly. So now I guess I'm in the market for some bead locks. I'm hoping to get something, as I've said before in a different video, something lighter. Aluminum or alloys will make that so much easier, especially because I just had to take all that stuff apart to do the brakes. It reminds me every time I have to take the wheels off how heavy those things are. And that would just make it that much easier, that much better, and that much more drivable. So I guess that's where we'll go next time with Frankenstein. And, you know, there's also the issue of paint. I do need to address that, because that's another concern. I do want to repaint Frankenstein. There's a lot of paint's flaking on the trail doors, because it was my first welding project. There is some cracking coming along on some of the welds, so I've got to basically just grind it all down and retack those welds, and then do the skim coat of Bondo, and then I think I'm just going to take it in and have it professionally painted. I'm not spending thousands of dollars on a paint job for a truck that does off-road things. But a Mako paint job is going to be better than my driveway with a rattle can. So we'll see where that goes. Anyway, thanks for watching.